the story of us is a story straight out of the metaverse. You need to know that Ritva and we never met. And all what we did the last year happened only virtually. Actually, G.E.I.E and ARTE, the channels we are both working for, are partners since a long time. We did a lot of and do a lot of co-productions in our program together. And I was really keen also to learn things at G.E.I.E since I feel them even more at the forefront than ARTE sometimes in what they're doing in all their activities. And so I thought it's a great idea to meet with Ritva in Austin, Texas, at South by Southwest 2020. But then, as you might know, something happened, pandemic happened. And so our trips and our already reserved table at Ironworks, if some of you may know, was cancelled, and we couldn't meet in person. But over all the time, the now 13 months, we created a virtual dialogue from the metaverse in thinking about aspects of the future, maybe of public service media. Is that correct, Ritva?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we guys come from a very traditional old school television, but we really want to talk about future. And I see that future is not something that is happening to us. I think that we make future happen. And this is also a little bit like wake-up call for you guys, but I hope it involves a lot of hope into it. Actually, our discussions are based on lessons we learned during lockdown and pandemic era. But we start by asking how public service media could have important place even in the future. And do you know why?
I have two reasons for that. One is we had an interesting research for the German audiovisual market this week published, and it says that TV is seen by the people on average more than 240 minutes a day, which is really a lot. And they compared it to some audiovisual actors in the market, some quite known and big ones, and none of them had more than 10 minutes a day of media usage. So we are old school, TV is old school, but still quite relevant. And I think that's important to point out. On the other hand, maybe of something like that's the second reason with Ritva, we discussed the public service media idea and the cultural impact behind that, and also how much it is really an undervalued concept, because sometimes you don't feel it, but it is still there. So we saw public service media really emerging a lot during pandemic with tailored offers, with different kind of activities to keep people in work, to give a space for artists to express themselves in music or in performances. What we did a lot on ARTE, for instance, on our "We Are Still Open" campaign, and so the sense of being a service or doing a service for society was a really strong commitment during pandemic.
Yeah, COVID was actually, and it is still a huge stress test to media. When it started, we all turned to our devices. We had to work, study, gather with each other on our devices, on social media platforms. We used Teams and Zooms and so on. But as fear started to spread, as we didn't know too much about the virus, it was alien around us. people started to search really trustful information. So trustful information was a little bit like medicine in the beginning of pandemic. And the first lesson we really learned with G.E.I.E was about trustful information. And 29 members of EBU, European Broadcasting Unit, shows that the coverage, evening news, actually grew 20% percentage if you compare it to March, between March 2020 and March 2019. But also young people started to turn on, and the growth was even more. It was more than 40%. The second lesson we learned was actually the study of trust. And this is quite amazing because Finnish, according to Finnish academic study, actually 90% of Finnish people said that YLE, Finnish Broadcasting Company, the company where I work, during pandemic, it was fairly or very reliable organization. So meanwhile, the trust to a public service media grew up. Actually, trust to tech giants went down. Can you describe this a little bit, what we found out, Kai?
Yeah, it was really interesting to observe. I mean, there's also a study about trust by Gutenberg University in Mainz, for instance, which confirmed the findings Ritva just talked about. But I think somehow scary, we observed some developments in the digital sphere, which, especially in the time of a pandemic, are quite worrisome. I mean, not only the distribution of falsely claimed content, but also the observation that sometimes when machines takes over, it is not really for the good of information. Three examples. There was a speech of President Macron in France, distributed also on YouTube. And actually, the speech was blocked automatically on the account of the Élysée Palace, so the place where President Macron is doing his service and works. And that happened because the speech was also distributed through a TV channel, and that TV channel got the copyright. So a strange and bizarre happening on YouTube. Another one on Facebook, there was the B3 Biennale did a live stream with the artist Atom Egoyan, and during his live stream, Atom was talking about Armenians and also the genocide in the past. And during the time he was talking about the subject, the traffic went down 90%. When he stopped talking about it, the traffic went up again. So visibly, there was a filter mechanism for special words in that. And the third example, and that happened to myself, and that is just happened last week. I was on Twitter and discussing with some friends about this and that, and about filtering also certain subjects. You know, there's, for instance, a village in France called Bitch, and this name led to a blocking on another social media platform. So we were exchanging some links, and I just posted a study about autopilots and pilots, because the question was, you know, how machines can really do they censor, or what do they do? And then the study was blocked because of offensive content. And actually, the only thing the study said was that autopilots are leading to that pilots are less able to fly their planes. And obviously, a third example of how machinery is not able to really observe and react appropriately to certain kinds of content. But Ritva, you have another example.
Yeah, as we have just 20 minutes, we don't dig deep in this and misinformation, even though it's a really interesting topic. But last January happened something that we never ever before seen. A group of rioters took over Congress in Washington. And the photos we saw, they were really unbelievable, and they were spreading all over internet. And afterwards, Twitter and Facebook closed accounts of ex-President Trump. And this was also something that never ever happened before.
I mean, that's perhaps something you all read, you all knew about, but for us, it is interesting in this kind of pearl string of events to see and to analyze it. And for us, it is really interesting to observe that there are emerging ideas and statements about the cultural impact of platforms, but who also see platforms as cultural institutions, since they're really shaping society, politics, but also culture. You know, there are some examples with that, like Clubhouse, for instance. Maybe it's a one-hit wonder. It has a hype like a one-hit wonder, maybe back in the 80s or 90s. Maybe it was already that kind of hype. Or you take as an example TikTok, which is, in my sense, maybe the first pop cultural phenomena from China, so to say, China mainland, so to say. So it has a huge pop cultural impact, but also sophisticated recommendations, something which really attracts interest a lot. And so is somehow, like I said it some days ago, maybe a mixture of Tinder and Instagram in the aspect of navigation through media.
I think this is a very good example if we think about how the social side is constructed. Uh, um, it is very important how we actually build the social in digital space. And I think it's even more important to think who decides how we make our how we build our relationship, what is actually the social we can use in digital space. How do you see this, Guy?
Well, I think
Is
it's
it
a
a
part
power
of a.
game?
It's not only that. I think it is part of a evolution, which you know, after the internet offense in the 00 years, in the internet of every day in the 2010 years, now we are more in the internet of life, and I think pandemic shows that really immensely. You know, machine learning helped to create the vaccines. We have apps to do our meetings for the vaccination. There are apps really important for everyday life. Is it transport, or is it home delivery? Is it food delivery? I mean, all that structures life, quite frankly. Also, if you see these kind of stop COVID apps that were created during the last months, they are depending on the OS systems heavily, and actually the OS systems allowed to do things and allowed to add and to change functionalities, which then hopefully helped also people to not get infected by the virus. So I think it is really a part of the story of how the internet became essential for life, and so not only as structuring life, but life in general for humanity.
That's true. But what you say, if I put it in this way, that in public space we often see these platforms as very shiny things, and in the same time we see public service media as an old dinosaur, almost lost its importance and power. But if I think about Wiley, Finnish broadcasting company now, after this stress test, I see that people really trust us. They use a lot of our coverage and content we offer them. They trust our news, and they are quite happy with our streaming service Arena.
Yeah, but that's the situation right now, and I think I would like to congratulate Wiley to these achievements. But on the other hand, for the future, that's a good starting block, but it's not enough. I mean, trust is something. It's kind of volatile. Um, um, it's quite volatile because actually you need to earn it every day. I mean, it can be earned quickly, and that's what we saw during pandemic. You know, you can be trustful, but you can lose that quite quickly. So, but that's on the other hand also for me the beauty of it. You know, you need to earn it every day, and that is a kind of encouragement.
That's true. And actually, I do agree. And I think public service really is missing something because during pandemic, we saw how important our social needs are. Really, we became very aware of all our missed connections, face-to-face meetings, the possibilities to experience culture together, and so on and so on. And I also believe, and I agree with you, that trust won't last very long if you don't offer and satisfy people's social needs. And also, I think here is some sort of a sense of urgency, don't you think, Guy? Actually, it's not something we can wait. I think we should start to offer people some sort of a public service internet. We really should do something, and that's not enough. I think we should start building participatory projects, and we should take people to work with us. I mean, also to communicate with us. We should listen them and do things together with them. So we should engage groups and communities. And I think it's very important that we start to create with people to people.
Yeah, and I think there can be a beautiful aspect and beautiful start to increment the existence of what we do into the life of the people. And they have that in the sense of news and of information and trustful information, but I believe it can go further, and that's maybe also learning from the pandemic. Um, the way ARTE supported a lot of artists with performances. It might be DJs playing in empty clubs, or it might be theater performances or operas. Lots of different, or a violinist player opening his living room every day with concerts in his living room. I mean, all this happened on our streaming properties, and all this really created a bond, I guess, and created support for artists and the creative scene. And that's, I guess, a good starting point to think further into how we can carry this in a post-pandemic time, and how we can do different kind of cooperations, like with museums, like doing screening series about subjects like artificial intelligence and our view on that in museum and other cultural institutions or public spaces. So I guess here is really a lot to do.
I totally agree. Two things I would love to mention here is something that public service media already have, but we have to take good care that we continue. One is actually education, and I think we have to really create new ways to learn and study and discover new things. There is a lot to do with new tech and new experiences, as I see that education is really important thing in Western societies. And the other thing is diversity. I see that we have a really, really good diversity in our offer, but there will be a problem how actually we bring this diversity to digital space, and how we keep on going with a really good diverse offer.
Yeah, that's correct. I underline that, but also, I mean, we have homework to do. That doesn't end, and we really need to analyze what happened to us and to people surrounding us immensely. But at the end of the day, it's coming down to trust, and that's what I believe. I mean, only if people believe what we publish, what we show, public service media, I think, will have a future. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you.